is the place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. All right, so this morning in studio we have the Senator, Laurence Hislop, and we're going to be speaking about the town meeting as we discuss a push towards Tobago autonomy. Good morning, Senator, and welcome.
Morning, Adanna. Good morning, Tobago. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, indeed, it is a pleasure. And as I mentioned before, we've been speaking about Tobago's autonomy for a number of years. In fact, when I was much younger, I've heard the term Tobago's autonomy. And we're still here talking about Tobago's autonomy, and we have not entered into that period of having our autonomy. And so the People's National Movement, you're having a town meeting coming up to discuss the said autonomy for Tobago. And my thing is, I want to know if we are going to move from the conversation to actually having the autonomy. So it is good. I welcome the conversation. I welcome the fact that the public is invited to come and hear, speak, have their voices heard, give their opinions. But for me, I want a little bit more.
Well, one thing I must say, first and foremost, this is not just, sometimes you make it sound as if Tobago doesn't have any level of autonomy. The Tobago House of Assembly gives Tobago a level of autonomy currently. What is before the nation right now in the form of the two bills that are in the parliament is for Tobago to have additional autonomy or greater autonomy. And this greater autonomy is going to put us in a much better position than we are currently. There has been the concerns that the Act 40 of 1996 is inadequate, and that is being said by persons who would have operated within that Act, persons who are currently operating within the Act, as in those who are currently in the administration. And so the bills that are there came as a result of significant conversation, because you were saying that we've been hearing this talk. So this is significant conversation, significant consultation took place. And just to recap very quickly, there was the forum of political parties that met. There's the famous statement by Mr. Pochoy Charles that said, let's fight together for it, and then when we get it, then we'll fight. We'll fight for who will get it, who will control it. And so the forum of parties came together under well, I wouldn't say the control, I wouldn't say that, but Mr. London at the time was the chief secretary and led the charge. And so you had Mr. Charles and all of these persons within the political space within Tobago who came together. Thousands of Tobagonians spoke, thousands of Tobagonians met and hashed out certain things and voted on certain things. The bills were drafted and debated in the Tobago House of Assembly. They were sent to the cabinet, because that's the route that you have to take currently under the current act. They were sent to the cabinet. The cabinet then laid them in parliament as they were sent from Tobago. Yeah? When they were laid in parliament, you then had the parliament putting into effect a joint select committee. And that joint select committee met with experts, met with citizens, regular citizens, because you've moved the conversation from the Tobago House of Assembly doing consultations to now on a national level, where the parliament was able to send out surveys and persons were able to send written submissions. And then from that, you have what is now before us. These two pieces of legislation, one which speaks to the amendment of the Constitution, which will now enshrine the Tobago House of Assembly, or the Tobago Island government, which it will be called, in the Constitution. And then you have the Tobago Island government bill, which now governs how governance is done in Tobago. And so we believe that the bills that are there, and you would hear the concerns that the bills aren't perfect and we ain't getting all that we want and these sorts of things. But the point is, where we are now, or what is before us now, what is in the parliament now, is far superior than what we have currently. Because just very, very quickly, you have one of the things that we do not have currently is lawmaking powers. We cannot make laws for what happens within Tobago. And so the bills that are before the parliament give us now that level of authority that says that we now truly have a legislature. Because the president now becomes part of the Tobago House of Assembly. So when laws are debated or bills are debated, in the House of Assembly, it goes directly to the president. Now, in order for you to enact something, you now have an assembly bill, which is now called an assembly bill, and that now has to go to cabinet before it is, and then debated, and before it becomes law. And so we have that addition. We have lawmaking powers, not even additional, but lawmaking powers. And then from there, and in addition to that, you now have a guaranteed 6.8% minimum of the national budget, which is
one of the things that we definitely have been clamoring for.
Right, which is one of the things that we've been clamoring for. And so when we say that you would even have your own Tobago Public Service Commission that now operates within Tobago you have your administrators now on the level of deputy permanent secretaries, and there's some additional stuff in it as well. I know one of the things that always jumps out at me in the pieces of legislation is that you now create a division of legal affairs. So you now have a secretary who is tantamount to your attorney general on the island. The finance secretary now becomes corporation sole of the Tobago Island government. And those, to me, those are significant advancements for the island. And the reason why the conversation, and we may be reigniting the conversation again, is because the Prime Minister has given a commitment that those bills, because I want to say that the bills are in what you call the committee stage of the parliament. So the bills were debated already. And they are at committee stage in the House of Representatives where additional amendments can be made. This is where you sit and you go through the bill clause by clause. And if there is a concern about something within the legislation, you can make the necessary changes there.
When you say you can make the necessary changes, because the bills went before the parliament, it has been debated, and now they're at that level, as you're saying, that you can make the changes. Yeah. Who is the body that is represented as you that can make the changes?
Well, you see, in the parliament, you have representatives who represent the population of Trinidad and Tobago. And so the representatives in the parliament can make amendments to the bills that are there. And these amendments can even come. They can be suggested amendments that come from interest groups, the public. These things can be communicated still to their representatives, to the parliamentarians, to say we want to tweak. We want to tweak the bills a little bit here. We want to move this here. Now, bear this in mind that when the Joint Select Committee met, with experts in the field of maritime law and all of these things. And advice was given to the committee about making some changes to the bills that would have been sent to Trinidad from Tobago, that would have been sent to the cabinet. And I want to make this also clear, that the Joint Select Committee is not a P&M committee or a government committee. The Joint Select Committee construct is made up of government members of parliament, opposition members of parliament, and independent senators in the parliament. And so what you have is voices from all levels of the parliament coming together, discussing what is before them, listening to the advice of experts, and making the best possible changes to what is before them.
All right, and so this town hall meeting is taking place. This town meeting is taking place on Sunday.
Yes, Sunday coming. So what we're doing is triggering is again starting the conversation to just inform Tobagonians of what the benefits are. And so this Sunday we are at Codall Multipurpose Facility from 4 p.m. Some of the topics that will be discussed. You have greater share of the national budget. We spoke to that, the 6.8%. The lawmaking powers for Tobago. That's something we do not have currently. And for me, if just for this item alone should cause us to recognize that the bills are more superior than what we have. Because what we currently operate with is in a space where we go and all we do is debate motions in the Tobago House of Assembly. And there is no real power within the Tobago House of Assembly. And so just the ability to create laws should speak to greater autonomy for Tobago. It should say, okay, we can now really and truly pass a law to preserve our marine parks, to preserve spaces in our community. We could create laws that can now give the Tobago House of Assembly more authority over what happens in Scarborough. And those are the kinds of things that we should really be happy about.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the town meeting really is to bring the conversation back to the fore again, and of course to give people information from where you are, from on the ground.
Yeah.
Do you believe that the people, Tobagonians, they have an understanding of what this autonomy is, what autonomy means, and what it means for Tobago? Do you think that the conversation is wide enough to inclusive of Tobago persons who reside in Tobago, who operate in Tobago? Because I feel as if there are groups, I mean, as much as we want autonomy, I feel as if there are groups who are still uncertain as to what this means for us. If we can get that measure of autonomy, even piece by piece, until we get to exactly where we want to be. Do you think the conversation is widespread enough and inclusive enough of all Tobagonians so that they can have an understanding?
Well, I would say that the process that took place prior to now was extremely inclusive. The process that got us to here, and I like how you posed it. That you asked the question whether Tobagonians are knowledgeable enough or aware enough to say let's go step by step until we get. And the question we have to ask ourselves: do we really know exactly where we want to go? Because you're hearing in some quarters that we still want to be part of the unitary state, and then you're hearing in some quarters we're not sure about that. Then you're hearing the conversation about federalism, and federalism came up in the initial conversation, and it was not accepted then, and so I agree with the point you're making, or even from the question that we ought to take this thing step by step. We moved from 1980 to 1996. And now we have an opportunity to move the conversation, well, not even move the conversation, but we have the opportunity to move Tobago further along in its growth path and its development path and its governance path. And the question I have to ask all of us as Tobagonians, do we want a situation where we say, we're not taking this, we're going to stay with Act 40 of 1996 with all its shortcomings. We're going to stay there and not recognize that, hey, we can get more. And then another, I would even say another generation, another group of people may come and say, listen, 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, we want more. We want some additional authority again. And so that conversation can start again. And so the call that we're making, and the people who have to trigger this now is the current administration, because the minority would have laid a motion in the House that called for us to move as one in Tobago and call on the parliamentarians, have a conversation with the parliamentarians. Because I want to also reiterate that the government has given a commitment that it is going to that it is supporting these bills. It's the government that brought these bills to the parliament. And so you have all the votes on the government side, both in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, that are in favor of the legislation. And might I say, you also may have a vote yes on the independent bench, because one of the independent senators in the GSE is a Tobagonian, Dr. Maria Dillon Remy. And so you have all of the government members saying we are voting in favor of this legislation. But the bills cannot be passed with just the government votes. Because you need a 3/5 majority to pass the bill, especially for the amendment to the Constitution, you require the support from the opposition.
Right.
And so the call is being made. So listen, okay, we may not, there may be some division in terms of everything that we want in the current, for Tobago. But currently, and we were reminded that the current Chief Secretary did say that the bills aren't perfect, but they had just a few changes may be required. But the bills are good bills. Yeah. So if we are at that position, all we're asking for is for a united voice between the entities that are in Tobago to send a clear signal to the Parliament, and more so a clear signal to the opposition. That listen, Act 40 of 1996 is inadequate for Tobago right now. And so we believe, and we've seen it, that in the pieces of legislation, we've gotten additional authority, and we want you to pass the bills. And that's to me, that's where the conversation has to get to, because the government cannot pass it alone. And so what we've done is to restart the conversation. The carnival is over, time to get back to work. We trigger the conversation now, so that we can start or continue to educate Tobagonians that, okay, things may not be how you want it 100%. But my question is, if you could get 75% over zero, what would you take? I'll take the 75%.
Right.
I'll take better than where we are. I'll take lawmaking powers. I'll take a guaranteed minimum of 6. Because the thing about it is, in this last national budget, 6.8% of the national budget would have given Tobago $4 billion.
That's right. You mentioned that the bill has already been debated and it's now at the committee level. When it leaves the committee level, which you say that is where you can make adjustments or amendments, when it leaves there, what is next? So, because now we're thinking about, okay, it's there in the Parliament, we've been talking about it for years, and okay, it's here now. But how long does it get from there to where we want it to be?
So after it's done in the House of Representatives, it still would have to come to the Parliament, to the Senate, for debate. It's going to come to the Senate even in the Senate. And this is the thing about the Parliament that some persons may not fully understand. Even in the Senate, you can have more amendments at the Senate level. So when you move, when you finish in the parliamentary system, it then goes to the president. The government can determine when the bills can be proclaimed. So in that period, you now start you're going to have a transitionary period, because you're going to have to build out certain additional systems. The Tobago House of Assembly would have to be, there's another thing that struck me as well. Currently, the clerk in the Tobago House of Assembly doesn't have control over the THA, is not an accounting officer of the THA. In this new piece of legislation, the clerk now becomes the accounting officer of the Tobago House of Assembly. So you're going to have additional stuff built out, because you're gonna now take your current Tobago House of Assembly construct from just a place where we debate motions to where actual lawmaking takes place. And so what you see happening in the Parliament, the National Parliament, will then be mirrored within the Tobago House of Assembly. And so you're gonna definitely have a transitionary period between when the law is proclaimed by the president and when things fully kick off into effect. So my take on it is better to get the ball moving again, or moving for Tobago to move from where we are. Because okay, if we had said we're comfortable with 1980, with the construct of the Tobago House of Assembly in 1980, we would not have the secretaries that we have. We would not have a chief secretary. Those are some of the things that came as a result of moving from 1980 to 1996. And so the question I have to ask all of us, is what's the problem in moving from where we are from 1996 to to what's currently before us, the bills 2020-21. Why do we have a challenge moving from there to here if we were able to move from 1980 with literally no power and a budget that was, and then move there to 1996, and then you could have Mr. Hochul Charles coming during his tenure, triggering what is the creation of the dispute resolution committee, which gave Tobago additional funding, and then you now come into this point where we can have a guaranteed 6.8%. You have a fiscal review commission that says, or a fiscal review committee that says we can look in greater detail into the development of Tobago, and if additional is required, additional is given.
As you said, the ball is rolling, and I hope the ball continues to roll until we get to where we want to be, because as I mentioned, this talk about Tobago's autonomy has been going on and on and on. So we are at a stage now where we have made some measure of progress, and I do hope that the progress can continue until we get at least the things that have been presented and debated, and now at the committee level, let's just get that part over and done with. And if we want more, let's go back for more.
And that's what we're saying.
I'm really hoping that we can really have that done for real. So your town meeting is on Sunday.
Yeah. Sunday, Cordall Multipurpose Facility. We start at 4 p.m. Our speakers there would be MP for Tobago West, Mr. Shamfa Kajol Lewis, who would speak to, because as a member of the Joint Select Committee, she will speak to the process of that. MP for Tobago East, Mrs. Adanna Webster, will speak to what this means for Tobago in terms of additional autonomy. Also, one of the speakers that will be there will be our councillor, Mrs. Patel Daniel Benoit, who's going to speak to the motion that was laid in the House and what it means for Tobago going forward. And also to culminate that great conversation will be our political leader, Tobago Council, Senator Ansel Dennis, which will give us an umbrella to the conversation on Sunday. So we're inviting citizens to come out and hear for yourself what's taking place. We're gonna ramp up some additional meetings as well, so that persons can dialogue, can feedback, can ask questions, because we think that is important, that the conversation is started again. The Prime Minister has signaled that before the end of the year, he's going to the bills are going to be brought back on the top of the order paper. They're still on the order paper, but they're going to be brought back on the top of the order paper so that they come out. If we could come out of committee stage, and hopefully we could get a yes vote from all our parliamentarians, and then we could move on from there. So I see Tobago only. The Tobago can only benefit from where we are now to what we could get.
Well, I'm here for it. I'm here for it all, of course, for the progress of Tobago and its autonomy and the things that we're asking for as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been speaking with Senator Laurence Hislop as we spoke about Tobago's autonomy, and the conversation that is going to take place this Sunday at the Calder Hall facility in their town meeting, and they're inviting all to come out and hear what is going on, get the information, and of course ask your questions for clarity and to be a part of the conversation. We have to go for a short break before we continue conversations here in studio, but there is another birthday that we almost forgot this morning, and we want to say happy birthday, of course, to Darren Richards.